Just recently, we watched as the first spot XRP ETF launched in Canada. This happened on June 18th. Now, what's crazy about this, right, is that from this first XRP ETF launch, we also got another one. Now, this makes up 3 XRP ETF launches. We have the Hashdex one back in April in Brazil, definitely a big one. We have the first XRP ETF, which is the Promise one, or the Purpose XRP ETF, sorry. Which, by the way, I want to go over this here in a second. But then we also have the 3IQ one. Now, like I said, I'm going to go over all of this. But what's crazy is that we're starting to see the ETF market for XRP really open up. And I want you guys to understand what this really means. We're going to go over all of this. But let's actually first start off with this post here from Smoke Dog, because this is actually an official XRP ETF advertisement, not to retail, but to institutional investors. Invest in the future of global payments infrastructure, a secure and efficient way to access XRP's growth potential. Access XRP's growth potential, gain secure regulated exposure to global payment innovation through an ETF holding XRP directly. With the XRP ledger's powerful blockchain technology and XRP's increasing adoption by financial institutions globally, we believe this digital asset is poised to reshape the future of cross-border payments. Custodians including, of course, Gemini and Coinbase, and this is also audited by Ernst & Young. What's crazy, though, is that this is an ETF advertisement to institutional players, where they talk about how you can get a secure and efficient way to access XRP, and how this is basically an extremely powerful blockchain technology that's enabling, financial institutions globally to tap into cross-border payments enabled by blockchain. I mean, it's kind of crazy to see just how big XRP is actually becoming, not on the retail side of things, but also on the institutional side. And I love that they have this historical performance of XRP down here, because everyone keeps talking about how bad XRP has been performing, and how XRP is this, XRP is that. Look at XRP compared to the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100 since going all the way back to July of 2020. Yeah, I think XRP is doing just fine. I don't think that we have to worry about XRP in terms of price action right now. But what's crazy about this is a full-on ad that's telling us how big this revolution is and how crucial XRP actually is to it as well. But on top of this, 3IQ. Once again, 3IQ makes history. We are proud to share that the 3IQ XRP ETF, which, by the way, includes multiple XRP ETFs. We have XRPQ, XRPQ.U, was officially listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange this week. Our team joined the TSX team to close the market and ring the closing bell at the TMX Money to mark XRPQ's first day of trading. This moment marks not only a major milestone for us, but also a significant step forward for the broader digital asset industry. Exciting times ahead as we continue building together. And yeah, I mean, listen, this is very, very exciting. All of these major ETF announcements, all of these moves, you might say, all right, well, they don't really matter because XRP's price action is doing this, or XRP is still trading at this price, whatever. I want you guys to realize what's happening. The institutional side of the market is opening up. The TradFi push on XRP outside of the US is very significant. The reason why I keep saying outside of the US is because we already know that the SEC is still stalling and delaying. Their next decision on the Franklin Templeton Spot XRP ETF is on July 22nd. Well, guess what? We now have 3 XRP ETFs, and I do think that the 3IQ one, I think this actually includes 3 additional ETFs, but I might be wrong. I know that there was already one or two ETFs in Canada already trading live. Some of them include futures, but the fact that we have all of these ETFs now officially launched, what is the SEC waiting for? That's our big question here. Are they just waiting for the case to wrap up officially? Because, while we wait for that, all of these other markets like Canada and Brazil, they're already getting behind this in a big way. And I would not be surprised at all if we saw even more ETF announcements around XRP globally. I'm really kind of looking at Singapore because we already know that XRP is a huge name in Singapore. South Korea would be huge as well. So we're definitely watching. And also, the CLO, Chief Legal Officer of Coinbase, Paul Grewal, put out a great post just to kind of remind everyone about, what happened with Bitcoin initially. A reminder, as Canadians begin trading the 3IQ XRP ETF today, regulatory clarity drives innovation. Canada had the world's first Bitcoin ETF in 2021. Now it beat the US with an XRP ETF. It's way past time for the US to catch up and get crypto market structure legislation done. And yeah, listen, this is a very big thing to focus on because Bitcoin didn't actually get a spot ETF in the US until years later. It was 3 years. 3 years after Canada already had the world's first Bitcoin ETF. Yeah, we might have had futures ones. It doesn't really matter though, right? Like futures does not matter when it comes to the underlying asset because futures don't actually have, the physical Bitcoin in, custody. But with spot, yeah, it does impact the underlying asset in terms of volume. So that's why nobody cares about the futures ETFs. They focus on the spot ones. So yeah, I do think that the US, why are we still playing catch up, right? If we're hearing all this talk about Trump and Scott Bessent being all in on crypto and David Sachs and how the US is going to be a leader, now is the time to lead. Get this XRP ETF spot trading live in the US already, because outside of the US, it's already trading live. And greenlight the additional ETFs around altcoins. It makes no sense to have, futures ETFs trading in the US, which we already have a XRP futures ETF trading live in the US without a spot. But on top of this, right, we also have over here from Anderson, just imagine when hundreds of institutions are doing the same as the ones in the below pictures. When they start holding billions of dollars worth of XRP directly, it's not just about payment volumes. It's about institutions holding XRP en masse. You're not ready. No, a lot of people are actually not ready. Listen, I understand that, we talk a lot about certain things that are out of our control, and we talk about how bullish certain things are. When we look at some of these moves that have been made around XRP this year, they are extremely important to focus on. Because, listen, 10,000 XRP today is very hard to come by for typical retail investors. Now imagine 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 XRP. Some of these figures are unreachable for retail right now. I say this because I do think that as time goes on, XRP is going to price so many retail investors out. I see a lot of people try to talk about, oh, well, you could always buy one XRP for this price or that price. Yeah, that's one XRP. We're talking about holding significant amounts. We now have companies like Weebus that are filing with the SEC for a $300 million XRP treasury management. On top of that, Trident announced a $500 million financing plan for XRP treasury and appoints Chain Securities LLC as the strategic advisor. Okay, so here we have, just by these two, 800 million. Now we already know that there's multiple, right? Even Viva with 121 million, Logistics with 50 million. We talked about this recently, right? The fact that we keep seeing more and more companies launching XRP treasuries, and we start to see more and more of them piling up. I look at all of the partners of Ripple's, right? That, if you look at all of the partners that Ripple has already on board, these are major institutional players, okay? And a lot of them already invested into Ripple, right? Standard Chartered already invested into Ripple. SBI has been a long-term investor as well. Imagine what happens when we start to see big banks and institutional players and enterprise players as well tapping in and doing what these companies are doing. There's nothing stopping other companies from doing this. And, you know, the opportunity here is actually very significant for them. Why? Well, we kind of go back to that post, right? That purpose XRP ETF. Look at the comparison here between XRP, the S&P 500, and even the NASDAQ. Okay, well, this is great to see, but what about comparing XRP to Bitcoin and Ethereum in the last 12 or 24 months? XRP has outperformed both of them. XRP right now is actually it's more lucrative than Bitcoin and Ethereum. I do think that we're going to see a lot more institutional players and a lot, more, treasuries lined up for XRP. I think that we're going to start to see a lot more buying of XRP, holding of XRP, and we start to kind of see the supply of XRP diminishing greatly. A lot of people want to say, oh no, there's over, 90 some billion XRP out there, so we're never going to actually have a supply shortage. It's easy to say that now, but just think about where this space is actually headed. Think about all the stablecoin initiatives. Think about all the tokenized things of value. When we actually look at XRP, it is one of the most valuable, projects in the space. It has the first built-in DEX. It was the first major ledger that was capable of tokenizing things. Like when we actually think about XRP, it's a historical coin. But what's crazier about it is the opportunity right now in this market that XRP actually holds. When we start to see the ETFs get announced in the US, on top of more companies tapping in for the treasury management around XRP as well, I do think that retail is going to be priced out significantly, and it's going to happen very, very fast. People say that it's all nonsense, but please go buy one Bitcoin. If you think it's nonsense, go buy one Bitcoin right now. It's almost impossible for anyone to hold one Bitcoin today. That's why I think that when we really look at what's happening around tokenization, we look at the XRP ledger, we're tracking this, we're at the early stages of this. There's already 7 assets on the XRP ledger. We're starting to see DeFi, institutional DeFi become a reality. We know that stablecoin initiatives and on-chain finance is set to grow in multiples. We're not just talking about 5x or 10x. No, this is going to be much bigger than what anyone actually thinks. So when we really analyze this from an overall market perspective, and we compare it to things like even the stock market, right? We look at the stock market, we look at these stocks that are valued in trillions of dollars, right? They're valued at these prices because they're connected back to the company's overall performance. With XRP, the value today is still tied back to just Bitcoin. Imagine a world where XRP's value is actually tied back to its utility. That's the day where nobody's going to be able to actually buy up a large amount of XRP. Why? Because I do think that the value is going to be way, way higher than it is today. And it really is going to outprice a lot of retail investors. So again, this is not a ridiculous narrative. It's not a ridiculous thought process. The market's opening up for XRP. Institutional players are getting behind it. The ETFs are starting to pile in outside of the US, which is putting a lot of weight on the SEC, in my opinion, and on the US market. Just like Paul Grewal is saying, yeah, I do think that it's only a matter of time until we actually get a US XRP ETF approved fully. Once we do get that, all of them are going to fall in line as well, which is going to eat up a significant amount of XRP as well from the market. And at some point in time, I don't think that we have to wait too much longer. Give it about 24 months, 2 years, right? I think XRP will price out majority of retail investors from holding a large amount. I really do. Today, it already has, right? A lot of people can just go out and buy 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 XRP. And I bet that there's a lot of retail investors out there that wish that they can go back in time and buy up a large amount of XRP. But that's exactly why I say that time in this market is so much better than timing this market. And you really have to make sure that you are taking those opportunities when they're given to you. But with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, Nick, thanks for watching. Peace out.